message. Viewer discretion is advised. Welcome to What's the Buzz. Hello, everybody. I am Mad Dog DeCipio, joined as I am each and every week by Her Holiness and Her Rolliness. What are you laughing at me for? Amelia, the Pitbull Chapman. How are you, Amelia?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm fabulous. Look at me. Don't I look terrific?
Absolutely.
Oh, I got to show you something. Check this out. New cup.
Oh, I like that.
That's called the Mega Cup.
Yep.
That's 2.5 cups of pure protein, baby. Well, no, actually, pure caffeine, I should say.
There you go.
Good stuff. We got a special guest with us tonight, Amelia.
Yes, we do.
This is a guy, and I want to tell everybody, this gentleman who joined us tonight, he looks like a nice guy. He looks like the guy next door. Laughing at me already. He's already laughing at me. That's funny shit. His name is Carver Pike, and he has a rather unusual vocation. He writes horror and dark fantasy.
Yes.
Amelia is the young lady that turned me on to this crazy person. I thought he was a nice guy, and I read some of his stuff on him. He's got some problems. Maybe you want to go see somebody tonight. Look at this. We already have somebody in the chat room.
He's been a Facebook friend for a very long time.
Hello, Donna. Hi, Donna. How you doing, kid? Thanks for joining
we go.
us.
I can see the Carver's awesome.
I agree, Donna. He is awesome because he's been a Facebook friend of mine for many years, and I have followed him because of his books. They are great.
Well, I can tell you what. I was going to, Amelia, every week I do a stellar job of introducing everybody. But you know what? Carver Pike is a writer, and he wrote an amazing introduction of himself.
Yes.
That I'm going to share with everybody.
Please
It says, "Hello, my name is Carver Pike. I'm a 2-time Splatterpunk Award-nominated author." We're going to find out what the fuck Splatterpunk is tonight, because I had never heard of it, and I can't even pronounce the goddamn thing. I am one of the 4 co-hosts behind Written in Red podcast. I'm guessing that means Written in Blood. And I host my own YouTube show called First Chapter Freakshow. I want to be a guest on that fucking show. I want to be there because I got a fucking freak show story to tell you, brother. I read other authors' books and talk about the world of indie horror publishing. And with that, I introduce you to our new guest, our new friend, and a guy who will join us often because I like the way he rolls with his stuff. That's good stuff. He's a young guy, but he writes like a guy that's lived 100 years. His name is Carver Pike. I introduce him again. Welcome, Carver Pike.
Thank
Welcome,
you,
Carver.
man.
How are
Thank
you,
you.
young man?
I was rocking out to your intro music and having a blast reading all the tiles and stuff, and that you're sponsored by Manscaped and my balls will thank you. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that was actually my spot. Yeah, I did that commercial. I remember, and they're still a sponsor, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I felt like I was a wrestler walking out to my theme music.
Yeah, your balls will thank you. Your friend Donna says that he was robbed. He should have won. Okay, so I need to ask you, what's the Splatterpunk Award? What the hell is that all about?
I think the Splatterpunk Award would be a whole different award show.
Okay, what is this? What's it called? The
Splatterpunk Award?
Oh, Splatterpunk. What the hell's the Splatterpunk Award?
So the Splatterpunk Awards is actually a mix now of Splatterpunk and extreme horror. It's given out at the Killer Con, the horror convention that's done every year in Austin, Texas. It's coming up this year in August. So it's one of the major horror awards that they do every year. And my book this year, The Maddening, which is the 5th and final book in my Diablo Snuff series, is nominated this year for Splatterpunk. So
I saw that.
not a Splatterpunk.
Yeah. Well, you know what happened? I'm not an author, and I wrote Splatterpunk on my script. So
now I also would like to be nominated for a Splatterpunk. So that's my next.
There you go.
My next goal.
That's the newest award.
I give you that word freely. It's public domain now.
Yeah, that's your next book.
Copyright it, and Splatterpunk becomes yours. Yeah. So let's talk about the world of horror. I will be honest with you. One of the reasons I wanted you here is, first of all, Amelia turned me on to who you are and your work.
Thank you,
I did some
you're
independent. Welcome. Oh yeah, she loves it. She's been a friend of yours for how long on Facebook? A couple of years now.
More than that, actually. I said you have to.
I
said you have to read his books. I said you have to look at Carver Pike.
Yeah,
books.
But you know what, Amelia? I didn't know that this young man was this accomplished.
Yes. I had to have him find out for himself.
Well, we're going to find out tonight. So here's what we're going to do. I want to talk to you a little bit about, your inspirations. Some of the people and I'm a little older than you. Some of the people I grew up reading were like, Clive Barker and, of course, everyone, Stephen King, Dean Koontz, Bram Stoker, of course, was, legendary horror writer, Mary Shelley, Annie Rice, Interview with a Vampire. And then there were, of course, the classics like Edgar Allan Poe and Ray Bradbury, and William Peter Blatty, Shirley Jackson, H.P. Lovecraft. These are just as a partial list of some of the greatest horror writers of all time. Who inspired you? You've got this amazing who's who of horror writers. Who's who was your cinch pin? Who was the guy or woman that put their hooks in you and said, "Okay, this is me now. I've got to do this."
It's kind of it's strange because I didn't really. Most horror authors, a lot of them will tell you that Stephen King was a huge inspiration and stuff. And I honestly, haven't read that much Stephen King. I mean, I've read a couple of his books, and most of that was later on in life. When I was younger, I had kind of a rougher childhood and stuff. And a lot of the books I picked up, I'd get them at Goodwill or something like that, or at the library. And I read kind of like a hodgepodge of books, just random shit I picked up here and there, mostly judging books off the cover. I read, I want to say I picked up like R.L. Stine and Christopher Pike and stuff, but way before like Goosebumps and stuff like that. Yeah. I mean, before he was even doing that kind of stuff. So it was like The Babysitter and things like that, his books. And kid books like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
From the kid as a library, as a kid from the library. And then I would start picking up stuff like the Ed and Lorraine Warren books and all the demonologist kind of shit like that. Just really random shit. I mean, I can't tell you any one author from a young kid that I was reading because it was all just random shit. In fact, I find books still to this day. Sometimes I'll pick up a book to read and I'll be like, oh, I read this already. I didn't even know who the author was at the time.
Yeah.
Like there's a book called Death Instinct from Bentley Little.
Yeah.
That if you've never read it, it's fucking sick, man. It's like about this killer that's just fucking everybody up in this town, but in really sick, gruesome ways.
Yeah.
Like I remember this scene where these people are walking out of a movie theater and this razor wire just whips across and like cuts them in half. And it's well, I don't want to spoil it for you, but it's
I know the book.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I read this
and I know the author.
And I couldn't tell you at the time who the author was. And later on I found Bentley Little and I just loved Bentley Little. Yeah. And I went to pick up Death Instinct and I was like, I've never read this one. I started reading it and I'm like, holy shit, this is that book I read as a kid. Like I didn't even realize I'd already read it because I didn't really cling to one author at the time. I was just reading whatever I could get my hands on. It's
interesting. You bring something up that's fascinating. A lot of what we read in horror makes its way into horror. Has always been considered a fringe genre. We should all agree on that. Yeah. But it's interesting how horror, as of the last, I'm going to say relatively recent, meaning the last 20 years or so, how horror has made its way into big time into the mainstream, where it was once considered a fringe element. It's now almost not only just the norm, but it's the predecessor to the norm.
Yeah.
Look around on television, film, cable, internet. The amount of horror is just permeating anything scripted, anything reality, anything nostalgic. We had a show. In fact, we talked about it before we went on the air. We had a show 2 weeks ago. I had 4 of the hottest indie horror directors in the country with me. And it's amazing how much horror is out there. These guys, between 4 guys, they did 140 movies.
Good God.
That's what I'm saying. And just as proof of what I'm saying, Carver Pike is a young guy, probably not yet 40, because you look like a baby.
43.
43. Okay, so I wasn't far off. But you have a situation here where a guy in his early 40s has already written in excess of 30 books. That's my point proven. So for a guy to write more than 30 books and have the better majority of them, I should say the most of them, the majority of them published, you got to be doing something right, and you latched onto a market that's hot. So I'm going to let you tell me what it was and how this snowballed to where you are.
Well, I mean, I actually started out writing erotica, actually, romance and erotica.
Oh, I love.
Well, actually, I'll rewind even before that. Actually, no, I started out writing dark fantasy. And somebody read it, a friend of mine, and said, you should try erotica. Like your style would work really well in erotica. That's where to go right now. 50 Shades of Grey is hot and all that kind of stuff. That's where the money is. So it kind of started out as a dare, and wasn't taking it seriously, honestly, at first. I said, I'm going to write a story about a girl that gets fucked on a Ferris wheel. That's honestly how it started out. It was a joke, really. It was like, I'm going to write this story. I dared her. I said, okay, you write a horror book. I'll write an erotica book.
There you go.
Well, she didn't write the horror book, but I wrote the erotica book. And then people seemed to like it. So I wrote a sequel and then a third book to the series. And then people started to kind of like that pen name that I'd created, which was actually a family name. It's Chris Genovese. So that's the name I was using as an erotica pen name. and I still use it to write more like romantic suspense. I actually use CM Genovese. For my name is Christopher Michael. It's my real first and middle name.
Mhm.
And so CM Genovese is where I write like kind of like Sons of Anarchy books, like
Sure.
biker books and stuff. So I started writing that kind of stuff, but my heart was always in horror, so I started publishing horror books under that pen name, the Chris
Right.
Genovese name. But it's really hard to sell horror to a romance crowd. People don't
It
really.
sure is.
The crossover is not really what you'd think it is, you know. So at some point, I just said, I'm going to separate it. I created the name Carver Pike, and kind of went from there. And
Yeah.
but I neglected it for a long time. I really didn't put the effort into horror that I couldn't. Like, I was being pulled towards. I'd created something with the erotica and romance, and it wasn't really allowing me to focus on horror like I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I kind of at some point put my foot down and said, all right, I'm going to stop erotica for a while.
Yeah.
And because
Well,
this is where my
the
heart is.
name Carver Pike, I think you alluded to it earlier, but Christopher Pike was clearly an inspiration for the name, perhaps?
Partially, yeah. And then I did have a character that I really liked that was in another book of mine that I called Pike.
Oh,
He was just a
okay.
character of mine. And then I just wound up liking the name Pike, and then Carver. I don't even know where it came from. It just sounded cool, and that went
It's a
together.
nice, strong name. I like that.
Yeah, it's funny because I thought to myself, okay, his name is Christopher Genovese. Okay, so now, how did he come up with Carver Pike? All right, he's a horror author. He's got wielding this big knife in his promo picture. So, okay, so he's a carver. He likes to butcher people up. Okay, Pike. I thought maybe he got his name from Alan Pike, the notorious satanic owner of the Pike House. Perhaps. But look, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Either way, Carver Pike is a great name. I love it.
No, but that is actually where Carver came from. When I was trying to think of, when I said it sounded cool, I was thinking of carving stuff up. And I did think it just kind of went together, Carver, and then like my group name on Facebook is the Carver's Block. So I just thought it's, so it all kind of came together, and that's where my focus went. And that's where I'm spending most of my time. I really just,
beautiful.
I mean, people call me Carver now. It's more like a nickname than a pen name, really. So it's like, I mean, that's what people have been calling.
Well, I tell you what, man, I got a young lady here that's, she's jumping to ask you some questions. Amelia, ask away.
Well, first of all, it's like, where do you get the ideas for the covers? That's because I mean, that's what intrigues me. Like you were saying, how you look at the covers, and that's what intrigues you to get the book to read it. Where do you get the inspiration?
Good question.
It's a good question, and I have a hard time writing the book if I don't have a cover already. Like, it's just something that really bothers me. If I start to write a book and I haven't because I create my own covers, so if I don't already have the cover, then it really, really bothers me. So
that's interesting.
Yeah,
that's really interesting.
And I'll be the first to admit that my covers probably need some work. I do need to work with cover artists, and
I love them actually. That's what intrigues me.
Well, it's interesting, Amelia, that Carver says that, because we're going to, that we love to play show and tell on the show. And I put together a slideshow of some of Carver Pike's greatest hits. So,
hey, show and tell time. Yay.
What I want to do, you know what? But Carver, you have a point there. I spent a lot of time in the music business, and I know a lot of musicians. I know people who can't write a song unless they have a title first.
Yes.
And I know people that write a song and then come up with the title after.
I can't write a poem unless I have a title first.
And that's because form follows function.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. I'm going to go right. You know what, Amelia? This is no time like the present.
Show and tell time.
Let's do show and tell, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
There you go. Show and tell. All right. So this is the that famous carving picture.
Oh my God.
I did not create that cover. A friend did, because that was part of a series that I was in with other authors.
Talk to me about the title here, Quills and Daggers.
I like that title.
All right. So the collective was actually a series with other authors that I was in, where it was me and 4 other authors, I believe. Yeah,
Right.
because there were 10 books in the series, so there were 5 of us in total. We each wrote 2 books, so there were 10
Okay.
books in total. Our 2 books had to be a standalone story. So really, you could read my 2 books, so my Quills and Daggers and We All Fall Down. The 2 stories would create its own
Right.
full story. But they all the authors' stories mentioned a serial killer. So my 10th book in that series was from the serial killer's point of view and kind of closed out the full thing. So
Gotcha.
Quills and Daggers was actually the name of a tattoo shop.
Oh,
And-
wow.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Awesome.
And the characters that
Interesting.
ran the tattoo shop. So
Where was the catharsis for A Foreign Evil?
A Foreign Evil is based in the country of Panama, and I actually lived in Panama for 10 years. So,
Okay.
so A Foreign Evil,
Mhm.
you know, and it's about a guy that's visiting Panama for a bachelor party weekend and gets wrapped up in, and that's me.
Yes, it sure is. Minus the huge machete.
Yeah, a friend of mine is a photographer and was taking photos and did my
Mhm.
headshot
Well,
that day.
we see the young woman behind the gentleman. She's
Yes.
clearly from the Quills and Daggers tattoo parlor.
Yeah.
Judging by the sleeve that she's.
So that's the collector's edition. That's the one or that's the one special edition where it's parts 1 and 2 together. So if you buy that one, it's just.
I was going to ask you about that We All Fall Down, the collector's edition.
Mhm.
So that's
that's
the combination, the combo book.
Right. So rather than buy 1 and 2, you could just get that one, and it's my 2 stories together. So
there you go. Terrific.
Yeah.
And I love the artwork, by the way. It's beautiful artwork.
Okay, this is my poetry book, and it's all about one man's journey to beat depression. So this is not horror. It's more of like a whimsical. I like to describe it as kind of like Shel Silverstein is another big inspiration of mine. I love Shel Silverstein.
I love Shelley. Yes.
My one of my dreams has always been to take this story and put an illustration on each page, just a black and white one, kind of like old Shel Silverstein style.
Yep.
I just don't have the.
I can make that happen for you.
So that would be amazing.
I can make that happen for you.
So I was holding off for so long doing that, and then I eventually just said, you know what, I'm going to put the book out.
I can absolutely straight shoot. I can make that happen for you.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. Let's talk about and I like this title. In fact, it's a fascinating title. Discovering Ivy in a Charcoal Cave. Where did the title one thing that you'll find out about me, Carver, I love getting into people's heads because your title tells me a lot about who you are. The title of a book tells me a lot about the guy or woman that wrote it. So where did that come from? Discovering Ivory in a Charcoal Cave.
Well, first of all, I suffer from a lot of depression myself. So this was kind of my own, my own way of kind of beating it.
Okay.
It's told.
God bless you.
Each chapter is its own poem, basically. The entire thing is one long poem. So,
okay.
And so discovering Ivory, it's about a man whose wife passes away, and this clown, really a mime, that takes him through this kind of whimsical journey, teaching him lessons on how to beat depression through the entire book. And his wife's name was Ivory. She passed away, so it's him trying to get through the depression of losing his wife.
Right.
And so it's kind of like him trying to find the light. So discovering Ivory, in a charcoal cave would be.
I like it.
So
I like it a lot.
Now, Faces of Beth, that's my new one.
Yeah, I want to talk about this because it is the new one, and because I've got some questions about the artwork on the cover. Faces of Beth clearly is either a ripoff or a tribute to Faces of Death.
Right. It's a tribute. It's kind of a tribute. You can see even the font is the same or very similar to what.
Very similar.
Now, I got to be very careful with what I say about it because I don't want to give away some of the twists in it. Now, I think the cover and the title and stuff, and even the blurb, kind of give you a hint of what's going on in the book.
Yeah,
but you
yeah, I kind of got an idea what was happening. I don't want to go into it too much because it is the new one, and I want people to buy it and download it and whatever you can do to it. Grad Night. I've heard a lot about this. In fact, I spoke to somebody who actually has a paperback edition of this book.
Oh, yeah.
And so let's talk about Grad Night. It's one of your early works.
I wrote this when I was a teacher over in Panama. I was teaching high school, teaching English as a second language.
Right.
And this is actually about high school students getting revenge on their teachers on a grad night party. And it's sick. It's twisted, but it's like, you know, each student has their reason for why they're doing it. And it's funny because I mentioned this at the Scares That Care AuthorCon convention I was at a panel I was on. I mentioned how as I was writing it, originally I just wanted to write a sick book about kids getting revenge on their teachers. But as I was writing it, I actually discovered these kids' reasons for why they were doing it. Like each one came to me.
I even asked Alexa, I said, tell me about Carver Pike. Alexa, and she actually mentions that book when I asked about you.
I've never done that. That's for I'm gonna have to do that. That's
I said, cool. Alexa, tell me about Arthur Carver Pike, and she mentions you, and she says she's also well known for the book. You should do that.
I do that all the time with me, with my show, with you know, with you. You know, I tell talk to Alexa. I go, Amelia Pitbull Chapman. Amelia Chapman is the co-host of Wrestling with the Future podcast. It's funny shit to hear that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Let's talk about this one, Carver. Passion and Pain. This is also part of the Diablo Snuff story.
Yeah, so that one, I was part of a group called the Romance and Erotica Authors Fraternity. So it was a bunch of male authors in a romance group. And we were writing an anthology together. The only rule was it had to revolve around this fraternity, this fictional fraternity.
Right.
So it was all romance books. I wrote one as Chris Genovese. It was about this guy that falls in love with this girl. He meets her. She's like a violinist and stuff. And one of the authors, he pulled out of the anthology. He couldn't write his story. He was too busy or something. So I said, well, why don't I take his place and write the 10th story too? I'll do it as Carver Pike and I'll just fuck my first story up. So how about I just take my first couple and Carver Pike it? You know what I mean? Just like show what happens when a horror author gets a hold of that couple and just so the first story is called. The first story is called
about that. That's an interesting. That's a really, really interesting dilemma you bring up, and people don't realize what Carver just said. I want to kind of like give you a little heads up because I go through it myself. Doing the show, and because of who you are, you write as Carver Pike, but there's also another person inside you named Chris Genovese. Okay. When I do the show, I'm Mad Dog DeCipio, but Angelo DeCipio isn't far off. Okay. How do you know when to turn on Carver?
I don't know. It's funny because now it's not so easy to hide Carver because even in my romance stuff, he starts to seep out. Like I'm actually writing a story now with my wife because she's also an author, and we're writing a book together. And I wrote the first chapter, and it's a biker book, and it's right in the beginning. I start talking about creepy clowns in this room, you know, and stuff. And I was just like, there we go. I'm already like slipping into Carver mode, like. And I'm supposed to be writing as Chris Genovese, but that's kind of why I created that CM Genovese, that middle ground. And with the biker books, you'll notice Donna's read all my books. She's like the most amazing reader I have. I mean, she's also an author, and she's a badass author too. Donna, that's in the chat.
Carver, anything that's got creepy clowns in it, I'm all for.
No, he knows why he said that. No.
Anything that'll freak out Amelia is all good with me.
Just don't turn it into a movie. Thank you.
Donna's read my CM Genovese stuff, and she just said, yes, I have. And she can attest that even my CM Genovese stuff has some Carver Pike in it. I mean, they all have some kind of creep factor to them. There's something like the bad guy in those stories is a religious group that like a cult. Where it's pretty sick. I mean, there's some like there's a character called the Knock Man that wears a bag over his head, and he comes to collect the taxes at your door. And if he knocks more than 3 times,
Mhm.
you know, you're basically a goner. You know, like
Oh,
you don't leave him knocking on your door, kind of thing. You know, like there's like creepy shit in those books too. I mean,
What inspired Redgrave?
Redgrave was actually semi-based on a true story. I mean, the story's about a female security forces person, whatever, in Air Force security forces, and she volunteers to work a post where she is up in Alaska, and she's supposed to watch a soldier that's in confinement. He happens to be like kind of a psycho serial killer type person. Well, I was a security forces member up in Alaska, and was basically her role where I had to watch a person in confinement in this old creepy building because we didn't really have anywhere else to keep them, and I wasn't allowed to have a gun because they didn't want you to be armed in this room with him alone, you know. So I had to stay overnight, a couple nights in a row, with just a flashlight and peek in this little window and make sure he was asleep.
Yeah.
And then check every hour, check all the outlets, the electrical outlets, make sure they weren't on fire or anything like that.
Right.
And, you know, of course, me being me, I sat up and watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre and shit on the TV and stuff, and scary movies, and creeped
That's
myself
my boy.
out all night, you know. Really, he didn't do anything but sleep all night, but it was still creepy looking in the little window. So, you know, I conjured up this story, but of course the book is way scarier, and shit happens in the book that didn't happen in real life. But the idea.
I'm looking at a book cover here that's clearly a scalp of hair loaded with head lice.
That is my parasitic head lice story.
Yes. Talk to me about scalp, my friend.
These head
that one
lice.
got a lot of good reviews. I remember that one when that one came out.
People either love it or won't read it.
Oh, that one everybody wanted to read it.
Anybody that reads it seems to love it, but
oh yeah, I remember so many people.
A lot of people won't read it just because they don't want to read
head lice.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's got a horror written all over it, brother.
Yes.
Anything that's got like creepy crawlies in it, I'm down with it.
They jump from scalp to scalp and dig through your skull, you know, into your brain and take over your body. And so this is part
the Seed of Sin, The Edge of Reflection, number 3.
Yeah. So
Talk to me about this one, because I've heard a couple things about this.
So this series was one of my very first ones. This was actually one of the ones that was written under Chris Genovese to begin with. So, and this was originally written under my real, because my real name is not even Chris Genovese. That's a family name, but it's not my real name.
Right.
So this was actually written under my real name to begin with. So Edge of Reflection is about a world on the other side of the mirror where we each have kind of a dark doppelganger. So let's say you find out your wife's cheating on you and you really want to kill her, but you just don't have the balls to do it over here, you know, and you're standing in front of the mirror and you're just like, I can't fucking take it anymore. I want to kill her. Well, your dark, you know, the mirror will cloud over, and then your dark version kind of grabs you, pulls you into the mirror, switches places with you, and does the deed, you know, kills your wife, whatever. And then
brother, that's got movie written all over it.
Yes.
So I really would love for this to be at least a TV show. I mean, I have 4 books in the series, and I've put off writing it for a long time because this is my dark fantasy series, and it just hasn't found the fan base that I wanted it to find.
Well, it found a fan base with me.
I know. I know that it being my first series, it probably doesn't have the strongest writing in it. I mean, I've definitely developed my skill a lot.
Well,
better,
but don't forget, you know, you were young at the time, and you were, you know, still, you know, kind of feeling who you are. Shadow puppets, scarecrows of Minnow Ranch.
Yeah, so that was definitely when I was coming into the horror from erotica. So this is what I would definitely call kind of an erotic horror. It's a woman trying to clean up her house after her mom passes away, and there's scarecrows moving out in the corn and sexual scarecrows. Let's just say, like
the red eyes glow.
Yeah. Did you read that one, Amelia?
Yes. I was like, okay, I don't think I want to be on the field for me.
Now, this is also part of the Diablo Snuff series. Slaughter Box.
This one was nominated for a Splatterpunk last year. So
at the Splatterpunk Award. Okay, cool. Okay, we'll have to check that one out. Let's see what the next one is. What I did was I grabbed a bunch of your titles that looked interesting to me, which means I kind of grabbed them all. So I want to talk about the Fractured Fallen Edge of Reflection 4. So clearly there's a series, The Edge of Reflection.
Right.
And so each one brings a different element to it. What is the catharsis or the spinning wheel for the Fractured Fallen? What's this all about?
It's kind of hard to explain without giving stuff away up to the fourth book, because it's like I said, it's about a dark mirror world. So the main character gets pulled into the mirror. So he spends kind of the first and second book really trying to get back to his world. God, it's really hard for me to explain it without giving away what happens in book 1 and 2, because books 3 and 4 really depend on what happened in book 1 and 2. So it's
absolutely. Okay, that's not a problem. Not a problem.
You have to read all the books, people, to find out what happened.
All the more reason.
Buy all the books.
All the more reason for people to go buy it.
Yes.
The Grindhouse.
And the Maddening is the one that's nominated this year for Splatterpunk. So this is The Maddening is my biggest book. Where is it? The Maddening is this one. I mean, it's a big.
Yeah. Oh, and you're going to have to send a few of those books my way, my friend. Yeah, because I want to bring some reality to these. This here, number 1 in the Edge of Reflection series, Twisted Mirrors.
Yeah.
So this is what we were talking about.
Yeah. So that's where it all begins with the
fabulous. I love it. Beautiful. Amelia, questions for our friend Carver Pike.
The handprint behind you, is that your handprint? I've been wanting to ask you that for a long time. That is
it's not. No, but that's a good idea, actually. I should.
Yeah.
Just do
that was like, I said, that has been like it. And I also I saw that Julie says that Daisy May is your baby. The cat.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that on there. I said, yeah.
I was not a cat lover at all until I moved here. So, and then
you have a sign behind you that says Haddonfield. And that's very noticeable to me. There's a couple of reasons why. I live not far from a real place called Haddonfield that has a real place called Crystal Lake. I'm not even making this shit up.
Oh, really?
If you think I'm kidding, go on the Google, folks. Haddonfield, New Jersey, Crystal Lake, Camp Crystal Lake. Can't make it up. By the way, for the record, Camp Crystal Lake was the actual real camp used for the Friday the 13th film series. Can't make it up. Go check it out if you think I'm kidding. The reason I'm interested in that is because today I found out I can't tell you who they are yet, but an actor, a well-known actor from the Friday the 13th series, will be a guest on our show in 3 weeks.
Awesome.
That's all I can tell you.
I can't wait.
Oh, that's cool.
I want to tease everybody a little bit. But the Haddonfield sign was very prevalent to me. I want to talk to you, Carver, about what things inspire you, what things used to inspire you as you began, and what now gets you to motivated to write.
Okay.
And do you have to be in a mind frame to write, or does something have to kickstart it? Does there have to be a catharsis for something to make you write?
Not really. In fact, I can't turn it off. It probably annoys my wife to be honest, because I can be anywhere and I feel like all I talk about is writing, and it's probably annoying to anybody that's not a writer, because it's just like, honestly, we can be anywhere. And like, I was driving down the highway and I saw a truck pulling a camper, and I just immediately blurted out an idea that came to mind. We saw a sign on the side of the highway, and I mentioned another idea that came to mind. And I mean, it's just constantly ideas and
You have to have pen and paper with you at all times.
yeah. Are you guys still there? The screen just went to me.
Yes.
I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah. You have to have pen and paper with you at all times, right?
Is it just me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And then so for inspiration, music does it a lot. I can't write with I can write with music on as long as there's no lyrics. Like I love to listen to movie soundtracks. I have a good Spotify playlist with horror music.
Wow.
Like theme songs. I love theme songs when I'm writing. I can't, if there's lyrics in it, I tend to start singing along and shit like that, and then I can't concentrate. But music with lyrics inspires me. So when I'm driving around, I like to listen to like rock and darker, like really any kind of music.
So Donna Latham wants to know, Carver, why do you still have that creepy mask in your office?
I wore this mask on the Halloween show of our podcast, the Written in Red podcast, and she swears that it moves, that it was like
she also wants to know if you could show us Daisy.
Daisy's out there. I'm not chasing her down. She's out in the house.
Daisy's your dog?
The cat.
The cat. Daisy Mays.
Yeah. And she's a pain in the ass because when she knows you want to pick her up, she'll run and hide. But then she comes around when you're busy and don't want to pick her up. So
that's funny.
So she'll run if I go out there.
Oh,
I'm fascinated by literature that translates into film. I'm a visual person. When I read a book, it doesn't matter what kind of book it is, because I've got several hundred books here from people that have been on the show. We have a show here called The Writer's Room. This broadcast is going to end up on the Writer's Room website, as a matter of fact. When I read a book, my mind goes to that big movie screen in my brain. And as I'm reading, I'm creating images, or actually you're creating the images for me. When you write, do you write with that intent in mind to create imagery?
I do. In fact, I mean, I've been told that my writing is very cinemascope, I guess was the word used.
Yeah.
And in fact, like with a lot of my books in the beginning anyway, started out as screenplays because I started writing screenplays. I don't know if you remember that show Project Greenlight that used to be on.
I actually know somebody that's the producer of this show.
Well, I started out, I bought, based on that show, back when Matt Damon and Ben Affleck were promoting that movie magic screenwriter software. Yeah. I bought that and started writing screenplays back when that was a thing, when that software was out.
Yeah.
So I wrote an ending for Halloween before Rob Zombie started making Halloweens. I have my own version of it, but then when Rob Zombie made his movie, I was like, oh, fuck it. And I just threw it to the side. I'm like, oh, it's too late now. And then I wrote the Edge of Reflection series. Yeah. I have probably up to book 5 or 6 at least in screenplay format. I've changed things in the books, which screwed up the screenplays. I'd have to adapt them and all that. But I mean, I have a few other screenplays that I still need to, play with. And I've written a musical screenplay, or at least most of it. I used to love writing screenplays, so that's kind of where I started, and I love.
Do you second guess yourself when you're writing? Do you find yourself going back as, we're all critical of our work. We all are.
Oh yeah.
Writers are. I have noticed interviewing literally hundreds of writers. That writers among the people that we've had, athletes, actors, producers, directors, professional wrestlers, MMA people, all kinds of people here. But the one area that everybody, it seems to be people who write for a living, who earn their money writing. They seem to be the most insecure people of all the guests that we have. And I want to know why. What is it about the psyche of a writer?
Know. Yeah, I guess so. I would say with every book I write, there's a little bit of that self-doubt, especially until I get through the final draft. And then usually I'm reading it and I'm like, okay, this kind of kicks ass. Like I kind of get to that
when do you know, Carver, that this is a home run?
I don't know. Like, that's what I'm saying is towards the end, right when I'm about to publish it, by then I usually kind of have a feeling that it's a pretty good, like with Faces of Beth. As I was writing, I loved the idea. Then as I was finishing up the first draft, I'm like, man, I don't know. Because I knew I was going to send it to Brian Keene, and Brian Keene is a fucking superstar. I mean,
yeah, sure.
he's the man, and he was writing the introduction for it. And I hadn't told anybody that yet. And so I was really nervous about it. I'm like, nobody knows this.
Yeah.
I haven't told anybody. He said he would do it, but he hasn't even read the book yet. So he might read it and say, this is a piece of shit. I don't want to put my name on it. So
I've written the foreword to 7 books already. And on all different kinds of books. Everything from rock and roll biographies to psychic books to religious books to you name it. Okay. The hardest thing for me, and it's just me, the hardest thing for me to really do is to be honest with somebody that, because this is their hard work, this is their writing.
yeah.
And I don't want to write a review or a foreword of a book knowing that I really don't care for it. And I've done that in a couple occasions because the people are friends of mine. And you don't say no to your friends.
Right.
Have there been situations in your writing where someone who is close to you said, this is not you? Don't put this out. Don't put this book out. I know you put a lot of time into it, but it sucks.
Yes, but they weren't that close to me. They were people that I kind of trusted because they'd read for me and stuff like that.
Okay.
But in fact, I'm glad I didn't listen to them because it kind of, this is a term I use sometimes. It kind of knocked my dick in the dirt. Like it kind of knocked me down,
sure.
made me feel like, I mean,
I've
I
heard that one
was
before.
fucking depressed when they first told me that. I was like, man, this was back when I was writing erotica. But then I didn't listen to him. I actually went ahead and published it anyways, and it turned out to be one of my most popular books. So,
because you put your heart and soul into
Robert
it.
yeah,
Whitaker
I just
Johnson.
decided, I was like, you know what? It's not for everybody. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I want to say hi to Robert because I just see I saw Robert's in here too. I can't see the comment though because
It
my
says, "Hey, Ange, how's
bottom
it going?"
of my screen is.
Do you know
blocking.
Robert? Do you know Robert Whitaker Johnson?
You're talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah, the name. Yeah.
He's a very dear friend of mine.
Or I think so. The name.
Hey, man.
If you ever thought of doing a movie, do you see yourself being a part of the movie
what?
as well?
What's that?
I don't know, man. I have maybe in a movie I could do something like that. But one thing I've discovered about myself is I can't. I'm not good with public speaking. I can do this kind of stuff and I'm fine. Like I do my own YouTube show, I do the podcast and stuff like that. But one thing I have discovered, even with, it's weird, I can do this kind of stuff and speak and I'm fine. But if I have to read out loud, even live, like on my own podcast, it's funny because I read on my podcast all the time. That's the whole fucking point of the show. I read every single episode.
Yeah.
But when I had to read at KillerCon, my own book, and I saw that Jeff Strand was there and Brian Keene and other authors that I respect that are been in the biz for a while.
Sure.
And I saw their comments rolling. I panicked and I fucked up. And I made it and it was a long ass reading. It was like 30 minutes or something.
Take comfort, my friend. I
almost had a nervous fucking breakdown. Like I can't get up and do. I actually, because Brian was the one doing the panels for Scares That Care, and I actually said, "Man, don't put me up there for reading. Like I can't do live readings. I'll freak out. I can't do like live."
Carver, relax, brother. I'll tell you what. You are in good company. Stephen King is exactly the same way. He said he can be in a film of his work. He can go and sit down and answer tons of questions from people. But you tell him to stand up and give a speech or stand behind a podium, he can't do it.
No.
Yeah.
That podium to him is constrictive. He can't stand there. He has to get up. He's got to walk. He has. I saw a speech that it wasn't really a speech. It was a Q&A. But he could literally not stand behind the podium. He had to take the thing off and put it down and grab a hand mic. They had to get him a hand microphone so he could walk. He said, I can't do this. It was the oddest thing to see. Here's a guy that creates this vision, with his words. He creates these pictures with his words. But he couldn't stand there and talk. Imagine that. But what you're saying is exactly the same thing. Amelia, go ahead, kid.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like the same way. I can't just sit there like that and be in a podium. I have to walk around and stuff like that. And sometimes if I write a poetry or something like that, people don't understand what I'm trying to say as well. And it's like, if I write something like if I'm walking down this dark road or dark forest or just nothing but dark trees, and they're like, well, listen to the birds. But you don't understand what I'm saying. There's nothing there. It's dark. There's no birds. There's nothing there. You don't understand. It's just me by myself. They don't understand the concept of what I'm trying to say. And they're like, well, you write dark. I was like, well, yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly
I can do
the
panels. Like it scares the care. We did a panel and I can answer questions and talk all day long and I'm fine. But there's something for me about having to plan and read off of like a teleprompter, read off a screen, a PowerPoint, and remember details or read from something that and I talked to Mary San Giovanni, who's also a very well-known author. I talked to her because she had a reading at Scares of Care, and she was telling me that it might have something to do with like the cadence of reading, like the breathing that goes along with it that makes it difficult. And that's probably it too, because I've noticed that my breathing gets weird when I try to read. I focus more on my breathing. It's like I don't think about my breathing when I'm talking, but when I'm reading, you do think about when you should take a breath. Like,
Robert,
make it to the end of the sentence.
Question. We have the question from the chat room. He says, do you come up with the idea for a book or a movie, or is some of their ideas for movies and books based on real life? And that's a great question. How much of your work is inspired by things that you've seen, witnessed, or know about?
I would say that the ideas are always fictional. Yeah, I think pretty much all of them are fictional. Except for what I told you about with Redgrave, probably. That was mostly kind of loosely based on real life, other than the fact that it was like a killer. But most of the ideas are fictional, but they're in almost every book, there's something true in it, or at least a part of me in it. Like, for example, Slaughterbox, that's one of the Diablo snuff books. The book is fictional. It's about a guy that takes this girl on a date to a theater that's run by this evil entity called Diablo Snuff, and this entire movie theater is a fucking slaughter box. Shit's coming out of the screen that's trying to kill them. There's shit coming. I love it. This entire theater is meant to like torture and kill everybody in it. Really, pretty.
And I like what you said.
Obviously, I haven't gone to a movie theater where everything's trying to kill me. It's fictional.
Well, actually, that story is very reminiscent of a film I saw many, many years ago. Called Midnight Matinee.
Yes.
Now, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, Midnight Matinee was based on these people who get trapped in an old movie theater. The doors are locked behind them. They can't get out. And the screen literally comes to life. So Nikki DeCuster wants to know, she says, I guess he or she, I don't know if it's a he or she, says, I love that story and that you stayed true to you. What story are you talking about, Nikki? And she says, right on, Carver. I'm guessing this is a female Nikki, Nikki.
Yeah, she is.
I like the way you said that though, where he says he comes find you, and I'm like the way it says. I was like, I could just imagine him saying it. He comes find you. It's like I said, I bet you Carver's thinking the same thing like that, the way he's writing it.
So Robert says, for example, Hostel, the idea of rich people that pay you to kill, rich people that pay to kill people. Okay, I get it.
Right. Oh. Okay, I get what you're saying. No, like, to me, Hostel's like one of the best horror movies out there, because to me, that kind of stuff does freak me out, man. Anything, because I believe that shit happens in real life.
Well, yeah. Well, he says the same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Robert says, I believe that happens in real life.
The maddening,
it absolutely does. People
really
crazy.
Diablo Snuff in whole. All of the in Diablo Snuff there are 5 books, and I always admit I fucked up the numbering system in them, because it's a foreign evil. really they're numbered as a Four and Evil is number 1, the Grindhouse is
Mhm.
number 2, and the Maddening is number 3. Then you have Passion and Pain and Slaughterbox, which I called them side stories. But
Mhm.
really, you have to read those side stories before you read the Maddening, which says
Yeah.
number 3. The Maddening is the 5th and final book, really. So you can read any of the books, any of the other 4 in any order, as long as you read the Maddening last.
Yeah.
So they're all kind of standalone. They touch on different characters that are in all the books, but you can read them in any order as long as you read the Maddening last. So
I'll tell you what, man, it's amazing that a young guy like yourself, again, you're 43 years old, a young man, has so much inside of him. You've got like 100 years worth of experience in you. Some people are just blessed with this old soul. I think that you're one of those people that just has an old soul and a really, insightful, keen imagination. You said it yourself. Your brain doesn't stop; it keeps going. You just want to write all the time, and God bless you for it. When you get the idea, write it. I don't
Yes.
care where you are, write it. And the next time Rob Zombie does a movie that you've written an ending to, fuck it, write it anyway.
Yes, write
I
it
still have the
anyway.
script.
Absolutely.
In fact, I might use that script for the book Redgrave. I've been wanting to write a full-length novel based on that Redgrave character, and I might use that Michael Myers story I wrote, that Halloween script,
Yeah.
to kind of loosely use it as kind of an outline for my Redgrave novel in a way.
Why not?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Because
Why the hell
Redgrave
not?
has always been kind of my Michael Myers
Beautiful.
in my mind. So
Mhm.
I'll tell you what, we have a lot of connections on this show, both in the literary world and in the film and television world. You let me know about that book. We will get someone on the show to do illustrations for you.
Yes.
Absolutely, for sure.
That would be amazing.
Amelia,
Yes.
this has been a very quick hour, young lady.
It has.
Man, oh man,
I think there's
Carver,
a part
what I
2
would like
to
to
this.
do, I'd like to extend an invitation for you to come back on a couple different occasions. I want you
Yes.
to come back because we're going to do Horror Night Part 2 with our film guys.
Oh, that'd be great.
And I want to hook you up with some film people. That's number 1. Number 2, when you and your wife think you're ready to come back together, because I know you're working on a project together, when you're ready to do that, please let me know, because I want to be the first one, to put it out there.
All right. So
Let's
she can
see.
give you
Robert,
the dish on what it's like to have to work with me.
Well, I noticed that she was wearing some scrubs like I wear. Does she work at a hospital or?
She works at a clinic
Clinic?
Yeah.
I work at a clinic as well.
Here's what Nikki is saying. Okay.
Mhm.
She was his story about writing what he wants and publishing in it in spite of the naysayers. Well, I think he just answered that question. Absolutely. Robert says, does it fuck you up mentally sometimes coming up with these ideas? ? How does it represent you as a person? Very good question, Robert. Very good question. And that's where we actually kind of touched on that question earlier. Where does Mr. Genovese stop and where does Carver Pike pick up? There has to be a clearly defined separation point, it's what they call point 0.
Yeah.
Where the human being has a life to live and has a wife and dog and or cat, whatever the case is, and then the author, is his own character.
Yeah.
For example, Amelia and I, when we're on the show, we are the pit bull and the mad dog. But if I became mad dog 24/7, I'd end up in jail somewhere. Because I get away with shit on this show that I can't get away outside my front door. My suspicion is that Carver Pike gets away with a lot of stuff that the Christopher Genovese doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say, that the places where I've grown up and stuff like that. I mean, you didn't let people get away with shit. I mean, when they talk shit, I mean, you smacked them. You know what I mean? Things you
Exactly.
kind of off with your attitude fast. And I've noticed it's funny because I've been out of the country for 10 years, and you know, I had a hard time kind of keeping my temper under control and stuff over there.
Yeah.
And being back, I've noticed things have changed a lot. Like you can't really just crack off like that with your temper.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
right?
And so it's funny because I think having Carver Pike and stuff has kind of calmed me down, because I have been able to like control my temper and stuff a little better now. So I will say that that's a good question, Robert. Thank you for that question. And I think I will say that when I do dive into the horror and I do write, you know, one of my horror books, there is kind of a cooling off time afterwards. Sometimes I want to, like, sometimes I have to, because I have a deadline. I might have to write like a romance book or something, one of the biker books or something.
Yeah.
And I can't, like, I'm not ready yet. My mind is still in that dark place. Like, I finished, I think it was Scalp, and I had to write a different book, like a romance book. I was part of an anthology or something. And I couldn't. I had to push back that deadline. And I said, I have to write one more book. And I think I wrote Slaughterbox or one of the other books really quickly. I wrote it like in a month or something. Like, I wrote another book real fast because I had to get it out of my system. Like, I just wasn't ready yet to turn off the horror.
You know what? We just experienced that here on the show, as a matter of fact. We did 4 years of professional wrestling, and I just was so burnt out on the wrestling. I said, I have to get it out of my system. I've got one more show to do, and I'm going to be done with it. And I said, Amelia, if you can stick with me, I'm going to do one more wrestling show, but we're going to go out with a bang. It's going to be a good one.
And we did.
And now the wrestling is behind us. The entire show has been rebranded. It's no longer Wrestling with the Future. It's Wrestling with the Future presents What's the Buzz.
Yes.
Because our brand is our brand. You know, it's what makes us, you know, a little bit of change. Not a lot of change, a little bit. I'll tell you what, Carver Pike, you are always a welcome guest here. You will be back. I will tell you that straight up.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, I'd love to come back. I had a great time. You guys are so easy to talk to. So
this is why you know what? Stephen Plim, who was the manager of people like Adam West and Jerry Mathers, Leave It to Beaver, and he was the manager and agent of Tiny Tim. He says Angelo is, and I'm gonna toot my own horn, toot toot. He says Angelo is the Johnny Carson of podcasting. If that's the case, then Amelia is my Ed McMahon, but much prettier to look at than Ed McMahon. And she's not a drunk like Ed.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I tell you, Carver, promote yourself. What's your social? Tell everybody where they can get hold of you.
Well, I'm everywhere as Carver Pike. You'll find me on Facebook and TikTok and Instagram, everywhere. I'm on Amazon. All my books and everything are on Amazon. I do have my own YouTube show. It's called First Chapter Freakshow, so please check me out there. Like Angelo said, I basically read the first chapters of all my horror author friends' books. So you listen to me read their books, see if you like them, that kind of thing, and have a lot of fun with that. I'm also in the Written and Read podcast with my horror author friends there, and that's about it. I'm pretty much everywhere as Carver Pike. It's pretty easy to find me. So.
Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Amelia.
Yes, sir.
Promote yourself. Tell everybody what's coming up.
Hey, you can, if you want to get on the show or have any ideas, you could reach me at Emily Valerio Chapman on Facebook or aachap70@gmail.com or our Instagram page. I am in charge of What's the Buzz, or here on Tuesday and Thursday nights with Angelo.
Hi, baby, and I'm the Mad Dog. And you can reach me at Mad Dog DeCipio on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Twitch, on Vimeo, on YouTube. I'm there. And I'm not going anywhere. I ain't got to go. So if you want to find me, I'm really easy to find me. All those places I just said, there you go.
There you go.
I'm not promoting anything. I'm not selling anything. I'm just a big mouth that likes to talk. Right?
Absolutely.
Somebody else in the okay. Oh yeah, Robert says Love to all. All right, Robert, we love you too, brother.
Yes.
By the way, he's in England right now. So 4, Amelia Valerio Chapman. 4, Carver Pike. I'm the Mad Dog. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time. Maybe we will. Well, I'm sure we will. What do you think, Amelia? We'll see him?
Oh, absolutely. I can
Tell
see a
them
few more
goodbye,
shows.
then. How come I
That'd be
always
awesome.
got to tell them goodbye? Why don't you tell them
Thank
goodbye?
you, everybody, for
Yes.
showing up for us. That was awesome.
Oh,
Beautiful.
absolutely. Yes.
See you next time, everybody.
See you next
Bye-bye.
time, everyone.